See, here's the challenge. I have someone that I love dearly, and I won't mention her name, but she is a very successful young woman in her own right. And in business, incredibly, I've learned so much from her. Very successful and very effective at getting a result. Very assertive, and a woman you wouldn't mess with, okay? So in one aspect of her life in business, she's very successful because she uses a particular strategy that's very successful. Quite assertive, quite strong, highly intelligent, and she's able to get a result. But if she carries that same strategy in different areas of her life, then it doesn't necessarily become effective. So here's what can happen. If some pattern of behavior that we have leads to some sort of success in some area, then we can make a miscorrelation that that's the way to be successful everywhere in our life. And as a result, let's say we're a bulldozer in business and we just bulldoze through problems and we get a result. Being a bulldozer in other areas of your life, does that always work, yes or no? So the challenge is if you have had success by doing something, sometimes the way that you went about may lead to some short-term success, but long-term it can lead to your failure. Does it make sense? So we've got to be aware of the patterns that we run, because we each run patterns. The way we make our decisions habitually, the way that we think. And sometimes if we have some early success, that can set the recipe for failure in other areas because it's not a sustainable way to do things. Now, the same is the stock market. How many people, the greatest danger is, and I've seen this with students as well, is sometimes they'll jump to advanced strategies too quickly. Because it doesn't matter, I can tell the rules, I can share, these are the rules that you might want to consider adopting, it's up to you what you do. My job this weekend is not to tell you how to live, not to tell you how to think. How you think is your business, is that true? My role as an educator is to challenge you to think. Does that make sense? My role this weekend is just to challenge you, to be a friend, to be a coach, to have a conversation with you, ask you some questions, but to challenge you. You're taking 4 days out of your life to work on your life. As opposed to being out there like most people for the next 4 days, they're working in their life. And when you get caught up making a living, most people are so busy making a living, they forget to do what? They forget to live. They forget to live. They're so busy caught up in making a living. So what we want to do is take 4 days out of our life, say, I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to work on my life. And working as a group of people, we can work on our life and we can learn valuable distinctions to set up our next 12 months, our next 5 years, our next 10 years of our life. Because the decisions you make today is going to determine the results you have in 5, 10, 20 years from now. Is it true? A lot of the wealth and the benefits and the great things in my life today are a result of decisions I made in the past. But making effective, strong decisions has led to a greater life for me. Okay? So that can work for you or can work against you. Is it true? If you make some poor decisions, you can pay the consequences of those decisions for many years to come. Who can relate to that? Okay? So the ability to make decisions and make the most accurate decisions is a critical skill in life. So that all starts, and jot this down, is what I said is awareness. The more aware we are of what's working, what's not for us, the more successful we'll be. Because until we're aware of what's working or what's not working, we're not open to change. We don't even think we need to change. If we're being taught all our life the key to financial success is we just have to work hard, and that's what we subconsciously and consciously believe, then we don't change. We say, I'm just going to keep on working hard because that's what my dad did and that's what my grandparents did and that's what I've been taught. And we keep on doing that. And we think that's going to lead to success. If we're not aware that, hang on, maybe we're following a pattern that's not going to lead to financial success, until we're aware and change, then we're not going to get a different result. To change some things in our life, or to change our life, what do we need to do? Change some things in our life. I have a dear friend that he helps me out a lot in business, and I help him out as well, just sharing ideas and things. And it's interesting because I love observing people. But what you should do, if you don't already do this, is just go out and observe people. Okay? Who likes observing people? Okay? Observe their behaviors, observe why they do things. So instead of reacting, start thinking, why does a person behave that way? What's causing that? So you become more empathetic, more understanding, more compassionate, and less judgmental. Because judgment doesn't help us, is that true? Okay? And as humans, we tend to do that a lot, but trying to understand, because gaining insight into why other people do things is, what is that really telling you about yourself? What's it really giving you? Awareness is giving you insight, correct? Insight into how you do things. So the more you can learn about yourself and the more you understand about what makes you tick, what makes you operate, what makes you make the decisions you do, what's the guiding force in your life, the more you'll understand other people. The more rapport you'll have, the more ability you'll have to be able to relate to them, whether that's in business, whether it's in relationships, any aspect of your life. So I know some people like Jamie, I just want a strategy. I like this share renting stuff because I only have to do it 5 minutes a month and I only have to speak to one person because I don't want a strategy I have to deal with people. Because I don't like people, I just want to be able to, if I can ring a broker 5 minutes a month, I'll do it online better because I don't have to deal with anyone. I can make money and never have to deal with anyone. Because some people don't like dealing with people, is it true? And it's understandable because people can be difficult. However, in life, we can make all the money from some strategies where it's true we don't have to deal with people, but if we're going to have a fulfilling life, guess what? We're going to have to deal with other people, is it true? The greatest joy in life, you're going to learn the 6 human needs tomorrow. But one of the greatest joys in life is really contribution, is actually helping others and seeing other people's success. That's the greatest joy I enjoy in my life, is hearing the success stories or helping people, whether it's my students or whether it's people that I work with, whether it's family, etc., helping them achieve more. Because there's more juice, more joy in that than just doing things for yourself. Okay? And I was sharing the other day, and the reason, the simplicity of life sometimes, we all have to relearn lessons at times. But it's often so true. I mean, if we wanted to be a depressed person, the easiest way to be a depressed person will be to focus on who? Helping other people, or focus on who? Focus on ourselves. People that are depressed are generally focused on themselves. The people that are happiest in life, guess what they're focused on? On others. That's what they're focused on. They're focused on others and making a difference and contributing to others, and that's where the real joy comes from. Oprah Winfrey. Amazing success story, yes or no? Yeah. She's had amazing, you read her life story of what the pain and the struggle she's been through and what it took for her to build the success and the empire that she's built. Why do you think she's very passionate about what she does? She just wake up and go, I've got to do another bloody TV show today? Is that her thought, do you think? She's passionate about what she does. Why? Because she's dedicated and focused to helping people. She spends an enormous amount of money and time and energy, and that's where her joy comes from. Now, ironically, when we study success around money, the or the deception or the delusion that most of society has is that people that are rich, all they do is think about money. That's what a lot of people think. Poor people think that. Is that true? Oh, they're just rich because they just focus on money. Well, they say, I'm not really into money. I'm not materialistic. They take the spiritual high road. I'm not really into money. I'm not materialistic. Jot this down. Bullshit. The people that say that are the most materialistic people on the planet, but they're in denial and have no what? They have no awareness. The biggest challenge where people don't get what they want is they bullshit themselves and they bullshit other people. The key to being successful in life is having good what? Good what? Good bullshit detectors. Come on, guys. You're Australian, most of you. Australian Kiwis have some of the best bullshit detectors on the planet. That's why we're liked as a culture, because we just get to the bottom line, cut out all the crap. But the biggest bullshit detectors you need is your own bullshit. Is that true? In other words, don't believe things. I've been dealing with a family situation recently, which I think is incredibly frustrating. I won't go into the details, but it's a whole financial complete mess that was created by over-generous parents, and I'm trying to fix the problem, and it's incredibly frustrating. But the stories people share and stuff, I'm just going to go, I don't know how many times I have to tell my parents, it's bullshit. Do not accept that. It's complete bullshit. It's just not right. I'm just like, this is how it is. See it. It's obvious what the truth is. The only way to solve the problem is to tell the truth. In other words, just tell people how you feel and tell the truth. It's the only way you're going to get the result. Otherwise, you're going to keep on buying stories. So what I've been trying to help them with is they buy a story. So jot this down. Buying stories. What I mean by buying stories, people will share their story of the way they see the world. They will share their story and they'll try and influence you. You have to be good at not buying other people's stories, but seeing it for how it is. Just like you have to be good at not buying your own story. What do you mean by that, your story? Well, your story is how you explain or how you have got to where you are today. Like my story 15 years ago to my mentor was I'm $150,000 in debt. My life is over. My life sucks. It's all my business partner's fault. I'm about to go bankrupt. There's nothing I can do, and my life is screwed. That was my story. Now, was that an empowering story, likely to lead to success, or disempowering? A disempowering story. So here's the key. If your story about your life empowers you to become stronger, better person and contribute and make a massive difference in the world, don't change it. Don't change it. If your story in some way limits you, holds you back, makes you less of a person what you're capable of, then I'm going to suggest change it, modify it, enhance it. Do you follow what I'm saying here? Because we all have a story. And this weekend is all about changing that story for many of you. In other words, looking at it in a different light and saying, hang on a minute. Like my mentor, what he said to me, he said, Jamie, it's interesting the way that you look at life. He said, here's what I want you to do. And what he was doing was changing my story, or helping me see my story of my life in a different way. He said, I want you to write down in 2 columns all your assets and all your liabilities. Listed on a piece of paper. And I was like, well, it won't take me long to write down my assets, so I don't have any. And my liabilities, that'll take a while because I've got heaps. I have no assets. And he said, that's your problem. I'm like, no shit, Dick Tracy. I know it's my problem. I've got no assets. He's like, no, that's your problem. You think you have no assets. He said, that's your problem. Until you recognize that, nothing's going to change. He said, put in your asset column. He said, how old are you? And I said, at the time I was 21. So I said, I'm 21. He said, well, put that in the asset column. So I put a 21. I'm like, why? He said, you're 21. Is youth not power? He said, do you know how many people on the planet would do anything to be 21 again? I mean, how much would Rupert Murdoch pay to be 21 again? Actually, better still, how much would Hugh Hefner pay to be 21 again? So he said, youth is power to be 21. Who here would love to be 21 again? Knowing what you know today. Knowing what you know today. Okay? So he said, you're young, you're healthy. He said, do you speak English? I said, I'm from the country, sort of. He said, put it in the asset column. You know how many people on the planet out of 6 billion people that don't speak English that would love to? Being able to speak English is a major asset. So put it down. So put it in the asset column. He said, you're healthy. He said, if you have health, you really have wealth. If you don't have health, then wealth is a problem because you don't have wealth. You can have, the richest man in Australia, or who's about to become richest man in Australia. Who can tell me who it is? Clive Palmer. He's from Queensland. Who's heard of Clive Palmer? So we're going, Clive who? Clive Palmer is about to become the richest man in Australia. Okay? He owns, I think, one of the soccer clubs here in the Gold Coast. Now, if you know Clive Palmer, he's about to be worth about $10 billion. He's pretty well off already. He'll pass Anthony Pratt as the richest person in Australia. Now, the first thing that strikes you about Clive Palmer is what? His size, okay? Let's be a little bit more polite, but he's going to be the wealthiest person in Australia financially, but health-wise, he nearly had a heart attack recently. Is it true? So it's like, my God, what's the point of being so wealthy if you have health problems? Kerry Packer. I mean, he had a lot of wealth, but he really struggled with his health. I mean, he was a hard bastard to kill. He just kept on coming back to life. His son's like, when the f*** are you going to die? Eventually he did, okay? But Kerry was a tough old man, is it true? But he would have done anything to have better health. Because you can have all the money, but if you don't have your health, what do you have? I say, I could lose all my wealth, I don't care, or I would care, but if I had to start over again, as long as I have my health, life would be fine. If you lose your health, that's much more difficult. Because if you don't have the physical, mental capacities, it can be much more challenging. Okay? It doesn't mean it's the end of it, but your health makes it much more difficult. So health should be everything. So he said, put it in your asset column. You're young, you're 21, you read English, and you're healthy. He said also, put down, you failed in business at 21. Put it in your asset column. I'm like, why would I put that in my asset column? He goes, you know what? Most people, the reason they'll never succeed is they never fail. They will not risk failure. He said, at a young age, you've made a lot of money, you've lost it, and you're in debt to a lot of money. He said, first of all, the fact you're in debt, put it in your asset column. He said, if you can convince that many people to give you that much money, then that is an asset, okay? Because if you can influence enough people in that much debt, then you can figure out the solution to get out of it. He said, put it in an asset column. You have failed. And it was such an invaluable lesson because all he was doing was he had the wisdom to look at my situation in a different light. And he changed my story by looking at it. What you get in NLP terms, he reframed me. He had me look at my situation in a different light. And by looking at it and looking at all my assets, he said, Jamie, you have everything you need already to become successful. You already have it. You live in a rich country. He said, put it down. You live in Australia. He said, is that not a major asset? He said, where else in the world would you want to live to create wealth? He said, you have everything going for you to create the success you need. There's nothing holding you back other than who? Myself and my story. My story, hard luck story, not fair, bitching, moaning, etc. So I was living below the line. Let me share with you what I mean by that. If people are living below the line, they'll tend to do these things. See if you know anyone out there. Not you, of course, but anyone out there that does this, okay? They will blame other people. Who knows some people that do that? And everyone knows some people that do. Who knows someone intimately that's done that before? Okay? We will blame everyone else. Does that make sense? They'll also, people live below the line, they'll have lots of these. Lots of excuses. Is that true? I'm not talking about anyone in the room here, right? We're only talking about people out there, okay? In here, we're all perfect. We know exactly what to do. People make lots of excuses. My mentor said, Jamie, you can either make excuses or make money. Can't do both, so make up your mind. He was once again, very assertive and very black or white. He had no time to waste. I thought he was a rude, rich bastard at first. So I used to think rich people are all bastards. That was my perception of the world. And here he was. I thought he was being rude to me. I thought, rich bastards. But it's true that he was just being honest with me. See, the challenges I was trying to help with my parents, just be honest. Now, it's not like they were lying or anything. I don't mean that. But I said just share and be honest. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. But if you reward bad behavior, nothing's going to change. You're actually not helping someone. You're trying to help your daughter, example, but you're not going to help them if you reward bad behavior. Sometimes you have to be brutally honest in life. People don't like that, do they? Okay. Now, obviously, we want to try and be as sensitive as possible. I'm working in that area of my life, be a little bit more sensitive, maybe not to be too brutally honest. But if you really want to help change people, sometimes they have to be smacked in the face. Now, not literally smacked, but smacked in the face with the truth. Wow. Because sometimes people won't change otherwise. It's better that happens than they get run over by a Mack truck later. Because this is true in life, we're going to get some lessons. Now, some of us are smart enough to see the lessons coming at a distance. It's like playing one of those games, like on your iPhone or something, where if you preempt in a distance, when you've got to land the planes on the airstrip. Anyone played that one? So if you preempt and say in a distance, one's coming, let's take care of that well in the distance, it's okay. But if you don't take care of them and they get bigger and these lessons are coming and we keep ignoring them, then eventually we're going to have huge problems on our hands. And that's when people get hit by the Mack truck. Okay? And then they have to oh my God, my life's a complete disaster. And then they have to start, now they become aware. What the hell happened? So they're forced into awareness. The key in life is to preempt things before they happen. Is that true? Now, some things you can't preempt. It's usually the unexpected things that happen. You can plan for everything. A recent thing, I was on a bike trip recently went up to Fraser Island. I haven't rode a motorbike, like a trial bike, for 17 years. I grew up on them on the farm. And a group of about 12 of us were going, good mates of mine, actually many of the speakers here, some of them, if they come in on wheelchairs or hobble in, that's because they're on the bike trip with me. Out of 14 of us, I was one of 4 people only that didn't sustain injuries. Out of 14 bikes, I think only 5 made it back safely. So it was a complete 4-day chaos. It's the biggest I've ever seen. But it was so much fun. But you're out in there, imagine 40-degree heat with a helmet on and body armor and suits and riding through sand on Fraser Island, okay? And bikes, 2-wheel bikes, not 4-wheel bikes, 2-wheel bikes. They don't like sand. And after, 6:30 a.m. in the morning, you get to the resort at 9 p.m. at night. And you can't even have a cold beer because you don't have the energy to lift it up. You completely had it. And I was riding along with a friend of mine that's just completed an Ironman. Now, I'm not the fittest I'd like to be. I used to be very fit when I used to play football, etc. But sometimes when you don't play physical sport as much, you're not as fit as you used to be. And he's like going, this, honestly, is harder than doing an Ironman. I'm going, I've hardly trained for ages. No wonder I'm nearly dead. 40-degree heat, where you put a helmet on, it's like 50 degrees. And it was the most intense physical experience I've had. After we got back from this trip, all of us slept for 3 days. 3 days after, you're like, my God, I'm still tired, going back to bed. Because when for the 4 days and you're on a motorbike doing this stuff and you're almost about to die, you're like adrenaline is pumping so you don't get tired. Is it true? You have that adrenaline. That's why adrenaline junkies, one of my mates, you'll hear from me later this weekend, Peter Bland, jot this down. Peter is crazy. And if you don't believe me now, you will after you hear him. The guy is nuts. He's a thrillionaire. Him and Nick Halleck, a friend of mine, are thrillionaires. They do things around the world to do crazy adventure things, adrenaline stuff. Okay, so Nick has gone down to the Titanic, in a submersible, submersible, I think it's 3 or 4 miles down to sit on the deck of the Titanic. Why the hell would you want to do that? You'd have to be crazy. If one little thing goes wrong, you're not coming back. Like, who's going to come and help you 4 miles down? Then he's been trained as an astronaut, planning to go to the moon, etc. But they are thrillionaires. In other words, they love the adrenaline. And some people just love that. Richard Branson's like that, has done crazy things, etc. But I can see now, after this trip, I'm thinking, this is a real buzz. So I'm going to the Antarctica in February. I'm thinking, Christ, you know how cold it is in the Antarctica? Anyone coming to Antarctica with us? A few people? Oh my God, I'm thinking, how the hell did I get talked into this? The Antarctica is like freezing cold. So I'm going to Tahiti on the way, so at least I can relax, Bora Bora. I'm thinking, my God, talk about contrast, Bora Bora. I'm going to be relaxing there thinking, I'm going to be freezing my butt off in Antarctica after Bora Bora. Now that's contrast, is it true? So where I was up to, I was telling you a very important lesson. Preempting. So the whole point is I had this premonition that something bad was going to happen on the trip to my brother. And so therefore, it's interesting when all guys, very successful guys, and a lot of egos. So, and like 14 guys and a lot of egos. So it was massive. And just watching this, we should have done a documentary of leadership, or lack of leadership at times, and just different ways of observation, the way that people react. So it's great lessons like teamwork, etc., working different egos as a team. So it's very fascinating being with a group of guys and guys just hang out and doing some crazy stuff. So the interesting psychology is how some people ride a bike is interesting how they live life. It's interesting how they live life. Some are reckless and dangerous. In other words, they will ride so far above their potential out of ego to make sure they're winning. Does that make sense? Dangerous. One, they only risk hurting themselves and others, but they're riding heavily against the odds that something's going to go wrong. They're riding so far above their potential. And some of them did that, and they broke some ribs, they hurt themselves, they did all sorts of things. Where myself, it's interesting. Now, everyone's different. I'm like this. I like to go as fast as I can, but as conservative as I can. Interesting, isn't it? Because when I was younger, I would take a lot more ride above my potential and push through. So when you're a teenager riding bikes, is it true? Those who have done it, you'd push the limit. Because as a teenager, you have no fear. Who can relate to what I'm saying here? But as we get older, we start to change our risk aversion. I can remember the exact time when my risk aversion changed. I was in the Zambezi River, whitewater rafting, almost drowning. And ever since that experience, I've changed the risk level I will take in my life. I've toned it down a bit. Because when they teach you there, when I don't know if anyone has whitewater raft the Zambezi, it's the most dangerous river in the world. If you don't get drowned by the rapids, where whole rafts have been sucked under and never to be seen again, it's that dangerous. If you don't die from drowning, just to add more flavor and adrenaline to the whitewater rafting experience, there's crocodiles in the river. So it's like you're dealing with these challenges. And they basically say this, because there's no insurance in these countries and they don't really care, so they'll let you do anything. So they'll basically say, here's the rules. When you go under a rapid and you're under the water, you got to stay calm. thinking, yeah, right. What you do is you count to 10. Slowly. Stay calm, count to 10. The guide says, if you get to 10 and you're not out above the water again, all you do is start at 1 again. I'm thinking, shit. So seriously, 8 seconds underwater and a rapid is a long time. Is that true? You know how life can distort time? You can distort time till you're 8 seconds underwater. You're thinking, why the hell am I not up yet? And then after doing this for half a day down the rapids, I decide to then go on the boogie boards for the rest of the day down the Zambezi. Now, at least when you're in a raft, you're on top of the waves at least some of the time. On a boogie board, there's no going over the waves. You're going underneath them. Completely crazy. And I nearly drowned several times that day. And I got out of there and I'm thinking, really? And this is 2 days after I jumped off the world's highest bungee jump in South Africa, Span Bridge, 264 meters, which was a day after September 11th. So I'm standing on the top of this bridge, and I only did it because there was a girl in the group who were doing an overland safari trip that was too scared to do it. So a couple of us other guys said, okay, we'll do it, so she will do it. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to bungee jump. I'd rather jump out of a plane that's more fun and heaps safer. So anyhow, you see the bungee jump. Imagine 264 meters into a ravine. It's insane. Most bungee jumps are like 60, 70 meters. This is like this, just walking out under this span bridge, under mesh wire, you can see straight down. And the 264 meters doesn't get you to the bottom. It's probably another 150 meters underneath that, into this steep ravine in South Africa. And you're walking out under the bridge, and it's freaking you out because you can see all the way down. And you think, my God, do I really want to do this? So you got to get yourself into state, and we'll talk about that later today. So you see the people in front of you, and the rope. When they throw the rope over the edge, you pretty much know you only got a matter of seconds when that happens. There's a rope starting to fall over in front of you, because then you're going whether you like it or not. So I thought I would have this. I thought, okay, let's reframe this, and let's make it enjoyable. So I said, okay, but in the back of my mind, I've been watching the September 11th footage where the poor people were jumping out the top of the building. Imagine where you've got the choice, you're going to burn to death or jump. Not a lot of options, and a lot of people were jumping. And so I'm thinking of that thought in the back of my mind and what it would be like to jump to your death. So not a good reframe. In other words, you want to be focused on something. Jamie, focus on something more compelling, okay? Something, okay, I'm going to focus on being a bird. I'm going to fly like a bird. Sounds like a good plan? Reframe. So now I'm a little bit excited. So the rope starts disappearing in front of me. I'm like, oh shit. You're either pregnant or half pregnant. In this case, you're pregnant. There's no being half pregnant. You're committed, whether you like it or not. So the rope goes over and then you go. So I'm like, I'm just going to fly. But I soon learned one valuable lesson. Humans don't fly. We don't go, we go straight down. And you're just going down sheer terror. It was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. I don't recommend it. It was like, jumping out of aeroplanes is fine, but bungee jumping at this level was not fun. It was like I had this massive headache, and when you're bouncing up and down for ages, because you're not